Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, my name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in as we get into the paranormal and supernatural tonight. Jacob Rice is here from the YouTube channel Ghostly Activities, and we are going to have a lot of fun with him tonight. But first, let us say hello to each and every one of you, including Race Fan in the gold medal position, Laura Lobbs with a silver, and our good friend SJ with a bronze medal tonight. Good to have you here. Now, let's move on to our roll call. We got Robert Lamoth, Frankie B., Hippie Deidre and her Birkenstocks, Eternity Eternal, Bar Madison. Bill Sardellis is here. Bill Sardellis will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Joanne, how are you? Little Timmy James, what's going on, buddy? Good to have you here. Fast Hemi, thanks for coming on in. Hi there, Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, Carol Amerio, Gory Tiger, Captain K-Rod. Good to see you all here. Mel WD40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any of that rigidness, especially when you're dealing with ghosts and spirit activity. Lube it up, Mel. Lube it up for tonight, and thank you for that. Scrolling on down, we say hello next to, let me just make sure. Yeah, I said Fast Hemi. Scrolling on down, there's Joanne. Keith McCormick, thanks for coming on in. Hi, Lee the Bee and Cosmic Joe. Good to have you both here. Little Tara Spender, how are you? Nice to see you. I haven't tried one of the cookies yet. I'm saving that for after the show. All right. Ethanol, thanks for coming on in. Bombshell Bomber. Millennium, my man. How you doing? Millennium will be signing autographs after the show as well. Light up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Good morning, Major Lee. Number 26 in your program, starting at right wing from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. There he is. Flubber Lane, good to see you. Hi there, Search and Destroy, Operation Shutdown, and Noble Patrick. Thank you all for coming on in. Chill Farm, how you doing? And in the studio, what's happening? Good to have you here. Hillbilly Herb, what's happening? Walter Kochabinski, good to see you as we continue on with our roll call here tonight. Blick74, thanks for coming on in. Digger Dog. Algaray over on Twitch, 1,400 jumping jacks in 12 minutes to prepare for Jake tonight. That's scary, as he says. That is scary. Oh, yeah. Heart rate must be going through the roof right now. Gary Rusin, how you doing? Pam Harris, Dragonfly, and Margaret Oliver. Nice to have you all here. Delia Whoopoo, Deadfish, and Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. I'm Hardcore on X. How you doing? Chris716, Mike Bothwell. Good to have you guys here. And Frost Kitten, nice to have you here. You changed your picture. Yeah, you did. All right, Major Lee, thank you so much for kicking off this super chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much, Lee. Very much appreciate it. JW3, welcome to SOR Chat from Ohio. Illustrator BW, what's happening? Stu Effin Gerson, nice to see you as we continue on with our roll call here. Oh, indigestion. I hate pizza. I love it, but I hate it. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Glad to have all of you here tonight. Jacob Rice is our guest. We're going to get into some unknown paranormal hotspots that he has found, along with our main man, Merl. Yep, Merl. He's going to be maybe making an appearance later on. Let's continue on with roll call on our YouTube side. The lovely and talented Heather McIntyre. See you in a month and a half. No, 2.5 months. 2.5 months. Yeah, 2.5 months. We'll see you, Heather. All right. Scrolling on down. Boss Monster. How you doing? Necessary Dialogue. Good to see you. And who else do we have here? Renee Cruz. Good to have you back. Wave of Mutilation. Nice to see you. Past. Welcome to SOR Chat. Phineas on X. Good to see you. And Felipe Fierro. How you doing? All right, guys. Hi, Rain. How you doing? Throw those horns up. Let's rock. Of Central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our streaming as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Jive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Jive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got an amazing show for you tonight. We're glad you're here to join us. Jacob Rice is here. He's going to take us down the road to the paranormal, looking for the hauntings that nobody knows about. His YouTube channel, Ghostly Activities. We'll get to him momentarily. Then in hour number 3, we got Swamp Dweller kicking things off. Follow that up by our good friend Robin Haynes coming in for a Q&A on the Crypted Report. Now, let's get right to Jake here, because Jacob Rice began investigating the paranormal over 15 years ago. And over the years, he has investigated some pretty gnarly places, ghost towns, abandoned asylums, haunted hotels, and other scary places. Now, he first had his first encounter with paranormal in Chicago. After that, he formed his ghost hunting team, Ghostly Activities, to uncover the mysteries of the paranormal world. Today, Jacob prefers and enjoys making paranormal documentaries. He hosts a ghost hunting podcast and continues his blog, also named Ghostly Activities, which you can find on YouTube. Good friend of this show, Jacob Rice. It is good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing?
I am good, sir. How are you?
You know what? Besides being a little bit tired all the time, because this working 2 jobs stuff really beats the tar out of me, I'm doing good. I'm doing very good, man. And I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying the fact that I'm settling down a little bit. I can't wait for the snow to melt in order to get back to a good area of investigation, which you're going to have to come up here and we're going to have to show you all around. But this isn't about me. Let's get to you. I mean, you are somebody who has been in the paranormal world now for almost 20 years. It's something you love to do. It's something that you enjoy. It's a great hobby of yours outside of collecting dogs. And yeah, for people who don't know, Jake has a dog for every day of the week now.
I do. Yeah.
So let's get right into it. For people who may not know you, you had your first experience as a teenager. It sent you on a quest to try and find out a lot of these answers to what is on the other side, whether it's life after death, whether it's dimensions, whether it's something a little bit more sinister or something a little bit more loving and peaceful. I mean, how have you enjoyed this journey of learning about the paranormal?
Oh, geez. For one thing, you're always going to learn something new. I find out every single encounter you have, every single location is going to be different from the next one. And what keeps me most interested in it kind of depends if I'm doing the ghost thing because I'm a big history buff, and you can't really be a good ghost hunter unless you're a big history buff too. And so to learn about the town, the building, the people that lived, worked, or died in it, and what they left behind, I think is very intriguing. And then on the monster side, my first encounter was actually with a monster. If you remember that story, the one in the well when I was a kid. Uh, didn't turn me into a cryptozoologist though, but it had me learning all about Wisconsin critters and geography. I can tell you.
What do you love about this field? What do you, so many times we dwell on the negative because there
Mhm.
is a lot of bad things that happen, but what do you absolutely love about doing what you do?
It's the sleuthing. It's totally the sleuthing, and what I mean by that because look, I mean, my biggest influence, Scooby-Doo, okay? Let's be real. Uh, the biggest thing about it is looking at history and what has happened in the past, and when people give you a call and say, "Hey, we're having this activity in this spot, and I see this person," and trying to put the pieces together to try to identify that person, uh, who they were in life, what why they're sticking around, why they're interacting with the living like they do. It's like a big puzzle. It's a mystery at the end of the day that you're trying to solve. And I think that's the thing that keeps me coming back to it after all these years or for all these years.
Is it a mystery that's solvable?
I don't think so. I really don't. The longer I've been doing it, and this is kind of like an epiphany I've had, because we talked about this quite a bit. I've been thinking I kind of evolved my thinking. For the longest time, I was really, if it's paranormal, eventually science and technology will catch up and we'll be able to solve it. Now I'm leaning more that it's on the supernatural side. I don't necessarily know if we would ever be able to solve like why ghosts stick around. Um,
Well, let me follow it up for this because the one thing that I used to be absolutely adamant that a ghost is a dead person.
mhm,
Okay. Somebody who lived has decided not to go to the light. Now, 10 years after starting this show, I'm not sure what a ghost is. I believe it's a combination of many things, but I'm not too sure if there's a pure definition of it. What is your thoughts on that?
Um, I think we could probably classify like the phenomena. At the end of the day, what is a ghost? I mean, until you can prove for sure um, that the activity you have really is something outside the normal, I think that's the first thing to solve for before you start talking about ghosts. But I think it kind of depends on the activity you're having because, you've got some people say they're having a poltergeist-like experience with things moving around, and a lot of people talk about that being psychic energy. I wouldn't classify that as a ghost. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you have an apparition that walks down the hall and disappears into a wall, and you know, that might be something. Of course, we can also talk about that. Maybe it's a temporal slip, for example, a time, like a little loop in time or something like that. So I think you kind of you need to solve for the phenomena first before you can start throwing labels on it. I'm still on the side of though a ghost is the essence of a person that's lived before.
I am too.
Hmm.
But I guess what I'm saying is it's been about since 2018 when we had an encounter on the old Gold Rush Trail
Hmm.
where we literally had to part the trail to let the two ghosts and their ghost buggy and horses walk by us. And that made me wonder whether or not we were the ghost to them
Hmm.
or were they the ghost to us and somehow we crossed dimensioned.
That's true. Yeah, a dimensional type blip. I could see that. That's what I kind of mean by the temporal slip as well. Maybe past and present are, sliding by each other. Because for one thing, the ghost may not even have known you were there, right? They would have just gone through anyway.
Well, they had to know we were there because we were communicating with them, number
Oh,
one.
okay.
And number two, they wouldn't move until we left the path.
Okay. You didn't tell me the story, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I didn't tell you the story, or I
No,
have?
you haven't told me the
Okay.
story
So
before.
back in 2018, we were doing a Paracon up here.
Mhm.
And on the final night of the Paracon, we took people, about 9 people, down to the original Gold Rush Trail. And and I'm going to use a term that you hate, okay? Because I know you're a techie geek.
Mhm.
I mean that with all due love and respect, okay? But here we are on a road. There's no power lines, no nothing. And we all have K2 meters. And each one of those K2 meters, now there's 9 K2 meters, man, 8 or 9, one of the two. And they are all on red while we are communicating. And this is communication real time 101. Like, they would stop talking, K2s would go to green. We'd ask a question, they'd flash back up to red during their answers. And so after about 10, 15 minutes, we said, thank you. Have a good trip. We'll let you continue their trip. I said, if you continue this road for about another mile, you'll come to a post house. You could rest your horses there. You could get a good night's sleep. Here's what we figured out with that investigation. We knew it was a husband and wife. We knew they had just come from China. Now, we knew that once, just history said that once the paddle wheeler got up to Yale, British Columbia, they would pick up horses, and they would usually 2 horses, and then they would pick up a buggy for their way. And so here we are, we're chatting away, and the K2s are still going off. And we're like, are you guys still here? They're like, yes, through the communication.
Mhm.
And I said, well, why aren't they leaving? I mean, they can walk right through us. Like, why aren't they leaving? And then all of a sudden it hit me, maybe they can't leave because we're in the way of their horse and buggy. And so I took my K2 meter and I walked down the path, and it was all red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, until all of a sudden, if trailers are, the buggies back then were about 12, 14 feet. Plus you got another 6 feet of horses, 7 feet of horses. Okay. So let's say 23 feet. And after about 23, 24 feet, I watched my K2 go green. And then as I started to walk back, it started to pick up again.
Hmm.
And so I said to everybody, I said, let's clear the path. They can't leave. They got horses and buggies. They can't leave. So let's clear the path and just hold your K2s out, see what happens. And lo and behold, my friend, as they walked past, you could see the K2s all go from red to green as they passed.
Oh, wow.
And that's the reason why I know you don't think K2 meters work. I know you're not a big fan of them,
I'm
but
not.
that's why I believe that they work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you get that many going off together, that I would say gives it more credibility. Um, and no one had any audio going or anything
It
like
was
that?
extremely basic, man.
Okay. No worries.
Extremely basic.
And you said this was up by Yale?
No, this was about a mile and a half south of the 108 Mile Ranch.
Okay. Wow.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. For you, as you've encountered so many different stories, so many different hauntings, so many different entities, what's a couple of lessons you've learned by trial and error throughout your ghost hunting career?
Okay. Probably the biggest one is don't go crazy with the gadgets. You know how Merle and I get together, and it's like tech bro flex, right? Every single blinking thing, and super sensitive microphone and laser grids come out, uh, the more and more we experiment with them, the less and less activity we get. But as soon as you go back to something that's a bit more normal, like a little audio recorder, got a camera in the corner, you don't have that slide on, you'll find out you'll get better evidence that way, well, like just with one blinky gadget. Because you got to think about it, right? If you're attempting to communicate with someone from the 1920s earlier, well, I mean, wouldn't that freak you out if it's an intelligent haunting? So now I'm on the side of scaling back the tech. Um, I gotta say I am a sucker for a blinking gadget, but I would say that's one of the best things is rethink how much gear you want to use to collect evidence. And then if I were going to go with the second one, I would say be kinder when you're asking questions of the spirits and how they engage. I'm not as directive as, say, like Merl. Merl's pretty directive with what he wants ghosts to do, to communicate, and I'm more, let's just go with the flow and be nice. It is a stranger, they were a stranger in life, so be cordial, kind, and show some interest in them, which means know your history, people, so you have something in common to talk about.
That really surprises me about you. And let me tell you why. I mean, I've talked to you so many times, both on the air and off the air, about technology, about where ghost hunting is going. Are we losing the feel for ghost hunting? And you've often really defended technology in
Mhm.
all of this, and to see that you're actually going back to the original status of, you don't need all this gear, you just need good intuition, you need, a good camera, a good voice recorder, and whatever else you decide to use that day. I mean, that really surprises me about you, Jake.
I mean, yeah, I've been pretty much a tech guy. I mean, when I bought some really crappy equipment. I think we're in the era of junk, right? With all the 3D printed stuff. At the end of the day, no, all the gadgets have been doing the same stuff for like what, 2 decades now, and we still haven't had a breakthrough. So I'm more about let's just get some solid evidence. You can't necessarily count on the gadgets. I mean, there's plenty of gadgets that I call them gotcha ghosts, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, you're not going to prove anything if you're always getting a ghost to pop up. I'm looking at USLS connects. Mind you, I love a gadget like that too, but I'm just like, that's not a good one. Not a good gadget.
What what makes a good ghost hunter, in your opinion?
Oh, I think ravenous curiosity is probably the biggest thing, and someone that likes to put the pieces together. Um, Now, let me change my I'm gonna change my mind on that one. I think it depends on the perspective you have on the craft, and I view it as a craft. And for me, like I brought up, it's mystery. I'm sleuthing. I want to solve something. I want to prove a connection to the past in the present. But for other folks, that's not their jam. They just want to have an experience, and I don't fault people who are, I'll call them paranormal experiencers. They just want to say like, "Oh, I encountered a ghost. It has this meaning to me, and I made a connection." And I think that's cool. And even the folks that are legend tripping, they're just out for the rush and everything. Well, at the end of the day, you're still trying to prove some phenomenon. Mind you, it's a little hyperbolic, right? And you're building on an urban legend. And but I'm not going to fault for someone being curious and going out and trying to trying to have an experience or solve a mystery. Like I said, I'm more on the mystery and putting the clues together to solve it. But look at
Mm.
what your own intent is and what you want to get out of it as well. I find the legend trippers don't stick with it very long, but
What is it about ghost hunting that is enjoyable to you? Like, is it these different locations that nobody has investigated before? Is it fresh territory? Is it going off the grid? Is it that first communication with a spirit who maybe hasn't talked to a person in 80 years, 100 years? What is it? What's the rush?
Well, I've got a few, and this has evolved over the years. For me, the big thing is, and this is going to probably not be an answer people would expect from me. I really like paratourism. I like to go see the haunted sites. I've done the research on the history, and to see it now, and imagine what it was back then is a bit of a rush for me. But when you get that apparition walking across the camera, the blip on the Envoy ghost box, or you get that ghost voice, I mean, that's always a great rush right there. But now I'm more about exploring history and going to see the places where all this dark stuff you just read about, from a coal mine collapse, right? Or like the Richfield courthouse, all the history with the hanging judge, for example. Uh, to me, that's awfully exciting. But I'm a bit older now, and history is far more fascinating to me.
What, in your opinion, makes a good haunting?
That's kind of subjective. For me, it is getting a lot of evidence. Well, and it doesn't have to be a lot of evidence. That's kind of subjective. But if you go up and you've done your research, you put out the gadgets, you've got the cameras, and you start to get that engagement. And it could be you hear the EVP because you've got your mic pointed right, you've got your mic pointed down the hallway, and you can hear the footsteps, or you can hear the whispers from the ghosts. Um, to me, that makes a good haunting, especially when it ties into the history of the place, like you're solving the mystery. But not, I know, I realize not everyone, that's everyone's jam, but you know, and it would be nice if it's a strong enough haunting where other people that come to explore can have an experience. Doesn't matter if it's the same experience or not. Usually, it's not going to be replicated. But I think, for one thing, that keeps people interested in the craft. And the other thing is, a lot of these places are being lost. For example, I'm from the Chicago area, Manteno State Mental Hospital, notorious haunt, former asylum. They've torn down the last of the buildings now, and we're losing our history. And so, what I like is you can use this as a way to preserve those buildings and those history, which Merle and I have been working on, and it's worked in a couple of cases. If you look at Alexandra Lodge, which he's talked about a lot.
Here's one of the things that I love about a good haunting. I love knowing that nobody else or very few people have ever been there.
Mm,
Now, I'm not a ghost hunter like you or Merle. I'm an enthusiast, first and foremost. I go for I'm not going for evidence. I'm going for the spectacle of what can happen.
mhm.
I'm having to change that attitude this summer. That's for sure. When I start investigating certain areas up here. But for the most part, I'm an enthusiast. But I'm as much as I agree with paranormal tourism, I think it's well overdone,
Mm,
especially by the television crews. I just happened to be talking to a television producer last week, and we were talking about something to do with TV. And I said, you could poll my audience, and all of them will tell you that they're tired of paranormal television because it's the same locations every season, just a different television title and investigators, but it's the same locations all the time. And I find that boring. We
yep.
don't need any more Waverly Hills or Gettysburg on television or Bobby Mackey's. We don't need that. They're great locations. I would love to visit there. But do we need all of that on television when there's so much more to expand our horizons, paranormally speaking? Jacob Rice, Ghostly Activities on YouTube. He's got some great productions on there. When we return, we're going to get into a number of his great encounters and places that he's investigated recently on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, Jake, I'm going to be right back. I'm just going to go grab a Tums.
Okay, I'm gonna go pour some more coffee real quick.
I'm just going to put you in the background. I'll be right back, people. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, everyone. Good morning, Ian. How are you? Look who it is, people. Merl! Talk, Merl. We don't hear you. You got your microphone settings backwards again.
He's got that new mic too.
I know. And every time he goes to come on here, he has himself muted.
You're muted.
Oh, damn, that's loud, Merl.
Good. I
There
keep
he is.
forgetting to press one of the buttons. Yep, Merl. Finally, Merl has entered the chat.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do you a favor tonight, Merle, because it's not a regular night for you.
Nope.
I'm not even going to change your name.
Can you change Jake's name for me?
No.
It's his name though. We call him the man, the myth, the editor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I like how Richard Minnick has put.
It's a slow motion Merl.
What you drinking, Merl?
Water.
Oh, I got the Java going.
Me too, Merle. Oh, I feel like shit right now. Pardon my
Merle's
language.
10 pounds down. When we get to Vegas, Dave, Gym Tan Laundry.
Merle told me from our Vegas trip that he plans on coming home with no tan lines.
No tan lines.
No tan lines.
I don't want to think about that.
Jerry Carter, how you doing?
So catch me up, Dave. Where are we at? So we talked about gadgets. Did we talk about the gadget minefield?
No, we didn't even get into the gadgets. We're staying away from gadgets tonight.
I did debunk the minefield though. I did, because I said don't use all the gadgets. I did talk about our tech bro flex.
Wow, big flex.
Big flex. But when it comes to evidence,
we've got it more refined now.
We're a bit more refined. Yes, we're the elegant ghost bros.
The cozy, elegant,
ghost bros.
Mm-hmm.
How's Dave? I heard you're going to get Tums.
I did go get some Tums.
What flavors?
Just the plain. Just plain white.
Who are you?
Merle, I made the mistake of having leftover pizza for dinner, reheating it,
Mm,
And not only did it taste like crap, but I had that. You always get that debate. You're still hungry for one more piece, but after
don't
you
do
eat
it.
that piece, you just feel like garbage. Yeah, I made that mistake tonight. And now I just honestly, I'm just either waiting for it to digest or it's coming up later.
Oh
But
Good
no.
stuff.
nonetheless, here we go, guys. It's all paranormal tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Glad to have you with us as we have Jacob Rice and now our main man Merl here to talk about the paranormal stories about what they've been doing over the last year. And trust me, guys, when I say this, it's incredible. Incredible. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this or portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Jacob Rice is with us. We also have our main man, Merl, and it's all paranormal tonight. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. I'm
Good to
happy
be
to
here.
be here on the eve of Ghosts of the Great White North.
Yeah, and the best part about this is, Merl, we get you tomorrow night, too.
A lot of Merling going on here.
Oh, hey, that's the way we like it. That's the way we like it, my friend. I want to talk about this project that you guys really got serious about a couple years ago, but it seems like about the last year and a half, you guys have been going very, very hard on filming and documenting a lot of these different locations that are going on around the Pacific Northwest. And the other thing that I love about these locations is you're choosing locations that are not heavily investigated.
Mm.
You are finding the stories of these small town legends, legend tripping, if you want to call it, and you're going for it. And you're doing so well. You're getting tens of thousands of views on your videos on YouTube. Jake, how did this idea come together between you and Merle?
You know what? It was just a natural evolution of what we were doing. For the longest time, when we would go and do our ghost hunt, sure, we would do filming, but it was mainly just so we could showcase, like on the ghost hunt reports, right? That 30-second snippet kind of thing. But we found out by moving into like a true documentary style, it was actually helping the locations.
Mhm.
And a lot of the locations were at risk, either because finance and they couldn't keep up the maintenance on the building. And so we started packaging it in a way, and I don't like to use the term packaging, but so that you could present the history of the place, because that's the big reason you should go to these heritage sites. We do a lot of heritage sites. It is because of the history, and that's something that the project's called Our Haunted Heritage. That's the big thing we're out to do, is preserve the history, preserve the buildings, and give people a reason to come and visit and keep these sites alive. And like I said, it was really just a natural evolution. I don't think we had really planned it. It just sort of happened, and then we gave it a name.
I think between you, Jake, and I, Dave, we've watched probably every show that's out there twice. That's a strong Merle.
That's a strong word.
And a lot of the shows, they don't celebrate the location and they don't celebrate and honor the history of places. Maybe I'm giving away our cards right now a little bit. But most shows you watch, they celebrate or focus on the said actor slash investigators and their journey in the locations, where I feel we've shifted gear and we've stayed humble. How many? 15, 16? You're working on number 16 right now, right?
17, number 17.
Jesus, 17 documentaries, where our formula has basically stayed the same in celebrating locations and making them the star. And I love being able to do these and then put them out. Like, it was an honor having Barkerville share our video throughout the Caribou. Same with like the Alexander Lodge sharing our video. So it's just a nice reminder of we're helping these locations stay alive, essentially.
And I love the fact, and you know what? There's a lot of paranormal. There's tens of thousands of paranormal channels on YouTube. You know, it's only the 1% that hit that 100, 200, 300, 1 million views on there. You know, they figured out the algorithms and the algorithms love them. But for the majority of us who are battling YouTube, just like socking it out with everybody else, you guys have actually had success with our haunted heritage. I mean, looking at some of your videos, your Barkerville video had 64,000 views plus. Your you have a lot of views on the pardon me if I pronounce this wrong, Shaniko
Shaniko.
has 14,000 views. You have 24,000 views. Ghosts of the Lighthouse. Your Ghosts at the Alexandria Lodge, that has 149,000 views. 10,000 views on Hotel Rodmay. I mean, 22,000 views on the Ghosts of the Inn. You know, you guys are really racking up, and people are enjoying what you two are doing as this fun project for you guys continues on. Talk to me, Merle, about how you guys choose a location.
A lot of them are word of mouth or Melissa. Like, we work
Mhm.
with Melissa, and she's basically our steam engine because she likes trains on the history and the locations, and she will be, you are going here and this is where we're going, because we pick a location based on it hasn't been trampled on a lot, but we also go for the history, the dark history, and what sorts of stories can we tell. Like, we like to tell multiple stories of each location where there's intertwining drama, past lovers, tea, murders, or different types of true crime, where we can start and finish that story while trying to communicate with these quote unquote stars of what we're talking about from beyond the grave.
Mhm. And we do some debunking, and
Mhm.
we've had some locations drop their urban legends, like in the case of Shaniko. Thank you, Melissa,
Yes.
for that. And they've corrected the history when they do their tours or whatever they leave up to honor the history of the building.
When you guys are out there looking for these stories and legends, what piques your interest, Jake? What is something? Do you have like a top five that you must check off before, maybe five out of top 10 that you must check off before you say, hey, let's try that out?
I would say not necessarily. I mean, at the end of the day, it's it's always great if there's some, crime element, a murder or something like that. But like, if we look at the Bailey House, it was just because it had an intriguing history. So I think the story about the place is more important than anything. Of course, murders and horrible things like that, right, can make a place intriguing, but it's just a long established history, interesting location, interesting ghost reports will do it. I wouldn't say there's one specific thing. Shaniko, for example, that was because of murders.
Hmm.
Bailey House, just because it had a lovely history and it was well documented. A lot of people have experiences. The lighthouse was because of urban legends that had been established about the lighthouse keeper's wife, Mary. So it's a little all over the place, I would say.
And
I
we're
think
pretty.
it's
Oh, sorry, Dave.
no, please go ahead, Merle.
I was just gonna say, and we're pretty fussy on our locations. Like, we'll throw locations out at each other, and we'll be like, no,
It's
no,
democratic. It is democratic, though. We
yeah.
vote. We vote.
We do. It's always a vote.
Take me through that vote. What makes you choose?
I threw here's an example. I threw 5 locations at Jake probably the other month, and he's like, nope, nope, nope. And these are ones in like close to the border, like Bellingham and that area. And it's because they've been done so much. And I appreciate that, like, we do keep ourselves in check a lot, where we want to collectively do new locations. And I'll go anywhere. I'll go to Gettysburg. I'll go to all your favorites, Dave, and I will do the heck out of them because I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'm guilty for that. And I appreciate Jake and Melissa going, Merl, no, we need something new. Dial it down, and they can dial me down, Dave. Not many people can do that.
but the other thing is, like, the current documentary I'm working on is a well-known haunt.
Yes.
But the big thing is, if there's not a lot published about it, like a lot of people haven't done like YouTube videos there, because the place we did in Port Townsend is well known. And the other big thing is it needs to have an off season, because, for example, you don't want to go to a tourist town in July and try to film a ghost hunt, because everything will be contaminated by the living. So that's another prerequisite we have, is if we're going to film there, especially at something well known, it's got to be off season, so we don't get contamination, and we can actually hear the ghosts when they want to talk to us.
The locations you guys have chosen, and we're going to get into some of those here in the next little bit, are they welcome to the paranormal stories? Because there are a lot of locations out there, as you guys have ran into, that even though there is rumors of them being haunted, they don't want any part of it. They don't want anything to do it. But in fact, they think it will harm tourism rather than actually help it.
So we did run into that with the most recent documentary that I'm editing right now. There was one of the management staff that was having none of it. A lot of the places, though, are pretty welcoming to the stories. The big thing of it is because the stories are tied to the history of the place, which is what they want people to know about. A lot of times, because we rent the places when we go to film there and do the investigations. It's like, hey, you're a paying customer. Don't interfere with the other guests and stuff. Keep it quiet, essentially. But we haven't run into too many cases where we've been told flat out no. Shaniko, we did have a bit of that. Of course, I don't bring it up in the documentary, but that wasn't the most ideal filming location.
Correct. Yeah.
What's wrong with it?
Let's just say they didn't know we were coming.
Oh, one of those.
The town folk didn't know we were coming.
Didn't know we were
Small
coming.
town, Dave.
Very
small town.
They all wanted to be part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I would have taken that as the opposite. So basically, it was something that they all thought that these big TV guys were coming.
The TV guys. But no, to get back on what you asked, Dave, I think what we do, and this is giving away one of our secrets, but like we approach locations educated on the location. We don't just be like, hey man, we've heard your place is haunted. We'd love to do a cool video for you. That's not how we approach. We will literally approach with every piece of history. Like, we know the place like it's our own house, and that's how we honor each location. We won't film or document a place we haven't researched to the point where we feel a personal connection with of the place and the people that had once inhabited there, because we owe it to them to tell the story correctly.
Yep. And taking Fort Worden as the example, we had all the receipts
Mhm.
for all the history, all the documentation of what we were going to film. And we got a big tour of the entire complex too, by one of the managers. That was great to see. We got access to like the old hospital and where a grisly murder happened and everything, just because we had such thorough research. And then Merle, with the most recent Barkerville. And here's a secret with Barkerville. We actually shot two documentaries there. The first one I didn't release. But with the second one, Melissa
Oh, yeah.
did the treatment with what we would cover with the receipts. And that went a long way in getting us access to whatever we had requested.
Speaking of Barkerville, I mean, you take a place like that, and for people who don't know Barkerville, it's literally the unofficial end of the Gold Rush Trail, even though it continues up to the Klondike. But it's a major museum in British Columbia. You guys went in there. Other teams have been there over the years to film and to do what they do. Some have been very good. Others have been nail biting in the fact that they really didn't present the museum very, very well. And you guys go in there. Your video has over 64,000 views on YouTube regarding this at Ghostly Activities on YouTube. What made that video work? What made it special to the fact that it took off when so many haven't?
It's personal. We used people that work there and live there for interviews and to share their stories, and we also connected with everyone to ensure the story we're telling is correct. And I found Barkerville giving us the trust to do what we're doing. I think is what makes it how it was, and that's how I feel we got the traction on that video. But and also it was shared a lot through the different like regional Facebook pages and Instagram pages, and I know Barkerville helped share it a lot too because they were really happy with the outcome of it.
Mhm. Yeah, and if we looked at the comments, a lot of people that watched it, they viewed it more as a travelogue than a ghost hunt. They had a connection because they would go there as a kid, and they'd like to see how it really hadn't changed in like 20, 30 years. And a lot of the comments were about that. They were like, ghosts I don't know about, but it was good to see Barkerville in the modern day. I haven't been there in 30 years. There was a lot of stuff like that.
Because I think we add enough non-ghost footage to our videos to make it palatable for the people who aren't watching it for the ghosts, who are watching it for the history. I feel the videos are kind of like a 1-2 punch for each generation of the young and the old, of the all about the history and all about the ghost. I think it's a pretty good mesh. And that's one thing we really pay attention to when filming, and I know when Jake's editing.
Well, history is a lost art.
Yeah.
It really is in today's modern world. I mean, people searching for history just hop on their iPhone. They're not into going to locations anymore. So the fact that you're able to bring these locations to the excuse me, to the world, I think is important. It's
Mhm.
important work what you're doing, even though you're telling it from more of a paranormal side.
Yeah, but I think the other thing is we totally anchor it with the characters from the past. So if you take Barkerville, the Kelly family, who were there pretty much from day one, and then Big B, the judge, and I forgot the other judge's name right now. But all the ghost hunts were very much tied to the characters, the big characters in the town as well. Characters probably isn't the right word for it, but you get it, the historical figures from the town.
Let's stick with Barkerville, and then at the end of at the next hour, we're going to get into some other locations that you guys have shot. But if you stick with Barkerville and try and tell that story, because there is so many different avenues there, from the Chinese community that really started building a foundation for the West Coast, and the Chinese migration coming over, to the Sikh and Indian cultures coming in there, to a mixture of all different types of cultures trying to strike it rich, and even to this day still trying to find that gold claim that's going to pay off the way it did back 150 years ago. I mean, what was it like? How did you be able, or what did you try and focus on when you were telling the Barkerville story, Merle?
We were trying to focus on actual thing because we focused on the Kelly family, which was a predominant family who basically inhabited Barkerville from day one until the end. They had a hotel. They ran the candy store there. They had a restaurant. We stayed at the Kelly Inn, or the Kelly House is where we stayed when we were there. And we also investigated the Tong. So the Chi Kun Tong are basically a Chinese version of Freemasons. And they were very, very, what's the word to use? Influential to Barkerville and in the history. Whereas you'd get all these Chinese workers coming in, and the Tong would help support them and see them through. So it was creating employment, a place to stay, and a place for all these new people and families to come. And Barkerville did that. And so those are two of the stories we talk about. But then we picked like a murder out of there with Al Mao. What was the gentleman who got murdered, and he was wrongfully tried. And it was like a model.
Killer got away with it. It was definitely injustice, so he had a reason to stick around. And we have a clip of Al Mao, what we believe could be the spirit of Al Mao in the Barkerville if you go to the Richfield courthouse investigation part.
BVP, yeah.
Jake, I'm going to get you to turn your microphone up just a little bit.
Okay.
You seem getting a little bit quiet there. But when you go into that, as we got about 2.5 minutes to go, are you looking for communication? Are you looking for them to tell their story? What is what you're looking for?
I think we're looking for all of the above. We want to communicate. We want to, like the case of Al Mao, where he was wrongfully, there was no conviction on his murder. We want to hear his story. We want to know how he feels and kind of the process of that. If we can be the soapbox of the afterlife, ooh, there's another catchphrase. Sorry. Then that's what we want to be. We want to be able to be there to, if we can, send a message, especially for things that happened like that back in the day where they probably didn't have the time to get their 2 cents heard.
Have you found that they are willing to do that? The spirits, that is?
I hope so. Like when we got what we thought was Al Mao's voice in the courthouse, yeah, I think he was trying to reach out the best he could. And we were using a translator app, like speaking what they would have spoke back then.
Cantonese, yeah.
Cantonese. And so we're trying. We'll play in their court, so to speak. If we know they don't speak English, we will cater and try and speak their language to get the messages out. Yeah, I do, Dave. If I think about that now, yeah, I think he reached out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fantastic when you're getting that type of communication in order to kind of make life work.
Mm-hmm.
In what you're trying to film. And when we come back from the break here at the top of the hours, we got about a minute to go here. I want to get into a lot of these stories, but with Barkerville, there's so many stories to tell, whether it's Judge Begbie or the story you were just telling. You could go back to that location 8-9 times and still not wrap it up.
100%. There's like 10 other stories I want to do there. Like you can make a whole season of Barkerville.
And just so everybody knows that every time Merl goes up to Barkerville, he never invites me.
Somebody was in the woods
right by my house. Oh, sure. He will say to me, he'll be like, hey, man, driving through town, what do you say we get some breakfast or some lunch? But never, hey, would you like to come to Barkerville and investigate with us? No, never. That's
Next
my
time.
man, Merl. That's why he's my best friend, people. Right there. That's why he's my best friend. We got Merl. We got Jacob Rice. Go see activities. our haunted heritage. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we're clear. I'll let you guys chat away. I'm going to step away for a minute if you guys want to chat with the audience, or I can put you in the green room. Where do you want to go?
We can stay out here. I'm just going to get up for about 30 seconds, but you got me to 10:30, Dave and Jake. 10:30.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate that, Merl.
All right, I'll be right back, Jake.
Okay. I'm going to get some fresh coffee here.
All right, we're back. Dang, I'm the only one here. How's everyone doing in the chat? Is everyone great? Y'all are going to come back tomorrow, though, right? That will be my show, Ghosts of the Great White North. I'm waiting to see a ghost in the shadows of Jake's office. Mike Bothell, I can make that happen. I will talk to them. I was talking to them today, actually, and I'll mention that. That will probably be June. I have guests for the next 3 months, so we're good. But the Pair Northwest ladies can definitely come back on. Mike Bothell, they actually have their own podcast called The Pair Northwest. It's a riot. One of my favorite shows. I had a new nickname for you. Picasso, the editor.
I don't know if I'm making art like that, but I'll take it.
Frosty Kitten Games has ghosts, Jake.
What's up?
One of our listeners here has ghosts.
Oh, what's been going on?
Tell us everything, Frosty Kittens Games.
Oh crap, I forgot my coffee.
No.
I went to check. I'll be right back. I went to check on the puppies, my St. Bernard puppies, and I forgot my coffee. I'll be back.
Anyone in our audience coming to Vegas with Dave and I? There's going to be lots of us there. Lee Strauss, Robbie G, the whole gang.
How you guys doing? Hey, Merl.
We're just talking trash, Dave.
Good. Good. Oh, that person I was telling you about in Vancouver,
Aye.
he'd like to see uh, what we cut up. Those 2-3 minutes.
Mm.
Yeah.
What are we having our coffee tonight, Jake?
What's that?
What are we having our coffee?
It's just coffee.
Oh,
Mr. Cowley, how you doing? Good to see you. Who else has jumped in here late?
I was trying to get a poll on who's all coming to Vegas, Dave.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
My flights are booked.
Mine too.
Tim's coming. Thank you to Richard and Major Lee for the super chats tonight. Vegas
Tim
is 1st to 5th at the Orleans. 1st to 5th at the Orleans.
Is Tim in the studio?
No, he's not here tonight.
Stu studio.
Yeah. We got 7 seconds. And here we go. Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is David Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us in, especially when we're talking some paranormal radio. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Halophilus. Halophilus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. We are talking our haunted heritage. We have our main man, Merl, joining us till the bottom of the hour, and he'll be back tomorrow night for Ghosts of the Great White North, and his filming partner, Jacob Rice. You can find his videos on Ghostly Activities YouTube channel. Gentlemen, welcome back. And we're going to talk about one of these great locations that you guys have been filming and getting a ton of views on YouTube. And this one I want to talk about is the Ghosts at the Lighthouse. What's his story, Jake?
Okay, so the lighthouse is the North Head Lighthouse. It's at Cape Disappointment, if you've heard about that in the Pacific Northwest. That's the graveyard of the Pacific, where the Columbia River crashes into the Pacific Ocean. Lots of ships have sunk there. And due to the high, we'll call it shipwreck and fatality rates, and ships coming from Vancouver and Victoria down to the States, mainly towards San Francisco, they would run aground or have problems crossing through there and seeing the cliffs. So they built this lighthouse to light the way, make sure that the ships stay safe. And they had the Pisanen family. He was the first lighthouse keeper. He lived in the house right next to the lighthouse, and his wife was one of the mysterious deaths that happened there. And a lot of people see apparitions and get ghostly voices, and there's a little bit of poltergeist activity that would happen there. And for one thing, it wasn't really documented what was going on in the house. So our haunted heritage packed up, and we went down to see if we could communicate with Mary, who was the wife who died under mysterious circumstances. Most likely, it was just a simple accident, and she slipped off a sea cliff and fell to her death. But we wanted to check it out and see, what kind of activity we could get there, as well as fix the urban legend about Mary. There was a lot that said it was a suicide because she had been recently diagnosed with depression. And there were also urban legends about her husband beating her. And you know how that negative energy can leave an imprint. Turns out he didn't. They were a very loving couple. They had they were going to retire to a cranberry farm. So we went down to investigate that, as well as set the record straight about what had actually happened there. And we did get some fun ghostly activity. Pun.
We did.
Did you
It was kind of
Lighthouse?
neat. Oh, sorry. I was going to tell you some ghostly activity. Um,
Go ahead, Merle. Take it.
yeah, so we saw this lighthouse. We were investigating upstairs, and one of the wildest things I've experienced is we heard people or somebody walking in military style boots downstairs, and then the kicker is going through our bags. Like we had a bunch of those like loud grocery type bags on our table, and we could hear. Could it have been a mouse? I doubt it, just kind of with how loud it was because we were upstairs. But it sounded like somebody was rifling through all of our bags trying to get them Canadian snacks down there. And I think we captured the footsteps, right, Jake? With that?
Yeah. So with at the lighthouse, what the standout type evidence was with the stairwell, because it's the old wood stuff, but we had a gadget out there that detects movement. And while we're in like the living room area, and I pulled out a telegraph. I know Morse code, so I'm sending Morse code signals when you can hear the steps go down the stairwell, and then something sets off the motion detector. Something walked by it. As soon as that happened, pretty much everything stopped in the house. It's I'd be surprised too as a ghost. I'm like, what the hell's going on here, right? But it was really interesting how you could use something from the history, right? Because telegraph Morse code would have been what ship sent, and how that started to trigger activity in the house.
So what kind of activity were you getting besides going through your plastic bags, wondering what kind of snacks you brought?
Let's see. We recorded Phantom Morse code.
Yes.
I had one of those old RCA tape recorders, and I put a cassette in it. And while we were just talking and stuff, and we play the audio back, we picked up fits and ahs, and it was a ship's call sign.
It was. That was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
Yeah, and then, I mean, folks had personal experiences. I wouldn't say it was like from a gadget standpoint. This is where we invented the North Head technique, which is kind of like a modern take on the seance. If you've seen our documentaries, you've seen us do this in a couple of places where it looks like you're doing the Estes method, but we have ITC, radio type gadgets around so ghosts can use it to communicate with. And we saw a shadow figure in the in the kitchen we were doing that. And then we did that. I should step back and say, for the premise of how we were going to investigate it, we wanted to investigate it like the spiritualist movement, back from 1870 up to like the 1920s. So that's why we did the North Head technique, which was a modern take on a seance, which a seance would have been done in that time period. Pulled out the Ouija board, and the Ouija board itself was a bust, but we got the EVPs by doing it, which those ghost voices, which they were intelligent type responses.
Love it. And what kind of stories were they telling you guys?
So I think the big thing is, I would say we never really got confirmation from Mary or Mr. Pisanen about her death. And we did ask about it, but they were pretty silent. It seemed to be more the case is, how we talked about the shipwrecks and people who had drowned from those accidents. Especially with Morse code, which would be a sailor type thing. I would say what's going on there more so is the sailors from those ships are looking to communicate. But overall, I would say the people that lived in the house, they're pretty much at peace. So from Mary and her husband, who was the original lightkeeper, not I think they've passed on, but there's other things. But when you think about it, right, with the ocean there and water and how water can store ghostly energy, right? It seems to be more of a phantom sailors trying to communicate. And I wish we could have spent more time with them. But, it's kind of hard to figure out how ghosts want to communicate with you over a night, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about the Hotel Rodmay.
Me? Okay. Well, Hotel Rod Bay is in Powell River, British Columbia. And it was so Powell River, British Columbia is it's on the Sunshine Coast if you have a map out. And what Powell River was famous for was a really big paper mill. That's what they did. They made paper and shipped it all over the world. And the Hotel Rodmay back in the 1910s and 20s was your typical joint where there was like a bar there and a bunch of rooms, and it housed a lot of the mill workers that came from out of town. So there were a lot of immigrant families there. A lot of Italians moved up there and worked in the mill. And one of the stories about the Rodmay was on the third floor. It caught fire, and I think it was like they said 2 children and a woman died on the third floor, and those were German immigrants, these ones. And when we were investigating the Rodmay, one of our investigators at the time could speak German, and we had some of our devices out, like the Polter tune. And what a Polter tune does, it plays music when its IR blaster is triggered. It's a motion detector essentially. And when the investigator was speaking German with like a little teddy bear, this device would go off like clockwork to the questions. And just seeing that sort of paranormal activity unfolding in front of you is pretty overwhelming, especially when it could be children as well. So that kind of hits home. And the Hotel Rodmay was also there's gambling in the basement with different other communities. There were different rooms for certain activities in the basement, and we only got to crack the tip of this place as an investigation. I would put the Rodmay in one of my bucket list places to investigate thoroughly, like above all of the Gettysburgs. And you can stay there. It's a hotel, and it's a very well-known haunt up here in Western Canada. And a lot of the locals won't go near it because it's just that creepy.
That is crazy.
Mm.
That is just crazy. I mean, who do you think is haunting it?
Could be the people that died upstairs. There was said to be a murder downstairs of a gambling issue gone wrong between some gentlemen in a hidden room. There's an actual hidden room down there. It could be that. It could be out there. There's a lot of fatalities at the mill because the mill was a dangerous place to work at way back in the day. The safety standards weren't how they are now. If you go to the graveyard or you look in their local books about the mill, there's a lot of memorials for tons of workers. Like I was talking about the Italian workers. These 3 brothers came over and they were building one of the smokestacks, and something gave away and they all fell to their death. And they'd only been there. They weren't even there for that long. And so I think those are the people. And beside the Rodmay is it's called the Historic District of Powell River. It's old Powell River. It's where all the old buildings are. A lot of it's vacant, but they're all historical buildings. But it's also beside where the old hospital and morgue was. The old courthouse inn, which we've investigated numerous times, was the old provincial building that had a jail cell in it. And there was a lot of traffic going through there from all the different smaller towns around. And I think that's you put all those into a pot and let it boil over, and that's your paranormal activity.
Yeah.
And it's right on the ocean.
And the other thing is right next to that is that huge power station that's
Yep.
just pumping
Hydro
the
Dam.
town with electromagnetic energy. Like you can hear the hum from the old courthouse inn.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And what kind of messages were you getting from the spirits there?
That place is one of the few places. The first time I went there, this was before Jake came. It made me feel sick, and I've only felt that maybe once or twice before. Like I didn't feel welcomed, and I felt like I could be harmed. That's the energy that that place was giving off at the time I was there. But we were investigating one of the sections of the Rodmay Hotel. We were investigating the old diner, and we were given a little tour outside of the diner, and just really heavy, sad energy, like it needs some life put back into it somehow. And it kind of sticks with you when you leave it. And like we went back to the old courthouse inn to go to bed. And you lie in bed and you're still thinking of the energy that place just embeds into you. It's really bizarre.
How do you go about not accepting the energy into you? Or do you just let it happen?
You just let it you just let it happen cautiously. You want to keep yourself in check. You don't want to bring stuff home. You don't want to bring any of that energy home. And doing these documentaries like the Our Haunted Heritage stuff, it's kind of changed my way I think and how I conduct myself on investigations, where I'm there to do a service to the location and the people that live there once or previously. And for me to be able to tell their story is I will take your energy. I will do whatever it takes when I'm there. But when I leave, the energy has to stay there in order for us to tell the stories with a clear mind. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I had a hitchhiker follow me home from
You
Palo
did.
for the first time. I had a
What
weird experience going there, and then when I got home.
what happened?
So going there, I I had just arrived in British Columbia. I'm at the hotel, so that night I had crazy dreams, and in one of them there was this like, old sickly guy, and he grabbed me on the top of the head, pulled my head back, and screamed in my face. So when I get to Powell River and we're doing the Estes method, mind you, I do not like to be on camera when I'm filming, but I did it for Merl. And when I'm sitting in the chair, I had the experience where I felt like someone was pushing in on my head. And then I stuck my hand out, and you can see the light anomaly go to my hand. And I said that there was someone standing in that room, which is room 6. That's where we had the shadow figure. But when I came home, it was about 2 nights later. I fell asleep on the couch with Mikey, who's my big old pit bull, one of my 7 kids. And it's about 2:30 in the morning. So Mikey got up and jumped off, and I'm like, "What you doing, boy?" And I heard shuffling, like someone was scuffling. I have hardwood floors, so you can imagine like the sound of someone in socks walking up to me. And then I hear a woman's voice go, "Why?" in my ear. To which I said, "You gotta go." End of discussion, skedaddle. And that was the end of it. And the later trips I've had to Powell River, nothing's happened. But that first time, going and coming back.
So strange. So strange when things like that happen.
Mm-hmm.
We got about 5 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Jacob Rice and Merle are here talking all things paranormal and supernatural. Out of all the locations that you guys have taken and filmed, is there a favorite?
I've got a few.
You go.
My favorite that we filmed is Bailey House, which is
Really?
pretty well known, and pretty well known in British Columbia, I believe. And that was just we talked about what makes a good haunt, right? It had the history. Nothing horrible has ever happened in the house, though. Just to be clear, it's got a history. It's got lots of reports of ghostly activity, and then when we were there, we got like some of the best evidence I've ever recorded, where like we put out the sensor gadgets and we picked up the footsteps going down the hallway with it. We got the EVPs of like the little kid's voice. Merle was outside. We were doing the Estes method. And when he came back in, he noticed the basement door was open. And one of the EVPs that we got when I was upstairs was something along the lines of, "Oh no, not the basement."
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. So it was loaded with stuff. So that, for me, that is probably one of my favorite haunts. I would give that the certified haunted stamp to that building.
Me too. I'd put Bailey up there, but I really like the 108 Mile Ranch, and I really love Barkerville, because like to the Americans, that's like our Tombstone or Deadwood of the North. There's so many different stories, so many old buildings, the graveyards, and all the little roadhouses going up to Barkerville, and all the stories they tell. Every roadhouse has a story, and the closer you get to Barkerville, the more you're like, dang. And like I said earlier, we could go back to Barkerville tomorrow and tell 4 new stories that haven't even surfaced. I've got old books from the 60s that are out of print that talk about Barkerville, that aren't in a lot of the more modern books. And I think it'd be cool to crack those open just to see if there's something we could really grab onto and tell stories. Unlimited stories, dude. That's why I like them. That one in particular.
Well, and that's what it's about. It is about telling the stories that have been long forgotten.
Yeah.
And as we continue on with moving forward in the future, the younger generations, they may have interest in history. I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, them young kids, they don't care about history." I disagree with that. But they look at history a different way. They're looking at history online and what's been recorded online, rather than actually going to the location. And I find that amazing that we need people like you telling these stories about Bailey House, or the you know Barkerville, or whatever it may be. It's very, very necessary. Merle, you've talked a lot about about Bailey House when you're here. For you, Jake, we've heard the stories about how there seems to be something not too nice in that building. Did you get to experience that?
I have to say, I've never had like a negative encounter at any of the locations we've investigated. Merle, he attracts it all. Me, I guess I got the blast shields up or something, but nothing really ever spooky happens to me.
Merle's a target, Dave.
Well, my question is, and I've seen Merle attacked many a time, but has the Bailey House, in your opinion, Merle, changed since that paranormal team went in there and defaced one of the haunted oddities that were there?
Yeah, I do. I think it was changed. I think it kind of wrecked the flow there, and I think the spirits felt and feel disrespected. It has definitely changed the tone. I remember being there, and Jake is a heck of a lot more active. It is an active. I would put that as one of the most active places I've ever investigated, hands down. But it used to be a lot more, and it used to be a lot more intelligent haunts where they would want to interact more. And I think that's why, like, I really changed gears going back there and having the curators walk us through these locations to make.
We got Merle, we got Jacob Rice. Our haunted heritage continues with these guys right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. It's bedtime.
All right, Merle. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Have fun for your last half hour, Jake.
I
Y'all
will.
have good chats. And we'll see the Spaced Out Radio peoples tomorrow. Be there. Good night.
He's got a fun guest for tomorrow night.
We do.
Who we have?
Jake, give the intro.
Kim Douthit is one of Seattle's leading murder mavens. She's a true crime junkie that explores ghostly phenomena as well as oddities across the world.
Cool. That sounds fun.
She is. I mean, I investigated with Kim at the Palace Hotel. She's awesome.
Yeah,
She's
the Palace
great.
Hotel is the new documentary I'm editing right now in
That's
Port
awesome.
Townsend, Washington.
All right.
That's awesome. Merle, do you still have that thing on film, or do you got to make something new?
I still have all of that footage for you.
All right.
Show.
Yeah, if you could email me that tomorrow,
Okay.
then I can send it off and get his opinion on that.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate you.
All right. Au revoir.
Night, Merle.
Merle, everybody. You'll see him tomorrow. Doff the cap, Merle. Doff the cap.
Nice fresh haircut today, too. See that?
Ooh.
That's tight. That's tight.
All right.
See that, Merle.
Ciao.
See you, buddy. Oh, I feel like crap.
Has Tums kicked in?
The Tums kicked in to kick the heartburn, but you know, when your stomach just feels like garbage after eating pizza.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going through right now. And even the water isn't helping.
Mm. How about some? You got ginger ale or ginger beer?
No, I don't. No, I don't. My barber's awesome. I think it's going to be one of these I'm not hungry until like noon tomorrow things. I honestly may have to, after the show, just get rid of this.
Oh
So
my!
I feel that bad right now.
Maybe you got a touch of food poisoning.
I don't know. Homeless to Millionaire. I've been watching your posts, and I'm going to be honest with you, buddy. I don't usually swear on this show, but I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I really have no clue. No clue. Please explain in plain English for me. What the hell do you mean? I'd like some yogurt right now. That'd actually be good. Hi, Nikki in Seattle. I tried tea earlier. It's not working. Jake, we got about minute 45.
Okay. I mean, you haven't even asked me about the Four Nations hockey.
The what?
We didn't need to talk about Four Nations, man.
I'm not saying anything until after we win on Thursday.
I was going to say, Canada's always proven if they lose one of the round robin, and this isn't everything, right? They come back with a vengeance during the final.
No, I'm, you know, I'll be honest with you. I like Team USA better than I do Team Canada.
You know, this is probably the best team since the World Cup winners in what was it, 96?
Yep. I've got a whole theory and a whole 25-minute spiel on that I could give you that we don't have enough time in 25 seconds.
Yeah.
But I love the way the American game is going, how physical it is. Whereas Hockey Canada for about a decade, 15 years ago, decided to change from that physical style over to a more European skill set.
Mm.
And it's killed us internationally. Absolutely killed us. And I hate watching it. Can't stand watching it flourish. And here we go. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We really appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. We got Jacob Rice from the YouTube channel Ghostly Activities. He's got a series on there called Our Haunted Heritage. Before we get back to that, Jake, you've had some interesting happenings at your own home.
Yeah, this one happened this past August. And just to give you some context, I got about 2.5 acres and like 300 trees. Okay, my place looks like a tree farm, but during the summer, I'm in my back field watering some fig trees, and my dogs are playing, running around in the back field, and I noticed someone standing by a white shed. She was an elderly lady. I couldn't really make out her features, and she was watching me, and then she stepped out and behind a tree and vanished. So of course, I'm like, who the hell is here? Because I have like 6 foot high fences all around the property. So, it was a little weird that the dogs didn't react because they were running around by that area. And I didn't think too much of it at first. But the next, about 2 days later, I'm back and I'm by the shed this time, and I'm watering my Leland cypress trees. And I see the same lady walking around my garden. So in my yard, I have this white fence that's about 4 feet high. And this is, where the pumpkin patch is, for example. And the dogs are running around the fence, not paying any attention. I got a better look at her. And she had kind of this auburn type hair and some glasses, but I still didn't get a really good look at her. So I go over to the garden, and as soon as I open the door, I don't see her. And I'm just like, there's no way a little old lady is gonna like hop over this fence. And I was more concerned about like a silver alert thing. Again, my all the gates around the house, the full 2.5 acres, everything's locked. So I'm like, they've got to be coming. She's got to be coming through here somewhere. But I'm thinking it's a silver alert thing. Like maybe this lady has dementia or something like that. She doesn't respond when I call to her or anything. And then I remember it. Just like the other day, August 14th, I'm now watering my orchard. I've got pear trees and apple trees, and I'm listening to my favorite podcast. And I look up, and the lady is sitting on my patio and a lawn chair on the patio, and the dogs are still running around her, not interacting with her. But I got a really good look at her. I could actually see what she looked like, and it was my grandmother that passed away in January 2010.
Oh, no way.
And so I'm like, Grandma Jones, because I always called her Grandma Jones, which is, that's just unique to us. And she stepped off the patio, and it's like she dropped and vanished. And so I got all the feels and stuff because it's my grandma, but pearl earrings, I could see the red nails, the really red lipstick that she always wore. And then the next day, my brother Charlie called me, and my mother had been in the ICU. She got E. coli poisoning, and she had been in the ICU for 3 days. And in the past, whenever we've had a crisis with the family, Grandma Jones has appeared. So my mother had been in the hospital. There was She was left paralyzed by a medical accident, and Grandma Jones manifested that time too, and was in the hospital with us. And anyway, so it's like an omen. I don't have like these type of ghostly experiences. Not like ghosts come walking to me. I like to call it. I've got the doppelgangers that keep everyone away. Merle knows this joke. We crack these jokes all the time in the documentaries too. And yeah, so it's grandma appears whenever someone close to me is might need help, or it's not looking good for them. She kind of manifests, and I don't know if it's just an omen and go check in on the family, but like she doesn't communicate with me really any other way. She just appears.
That's kind of cool, though. At least you have that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get that, Jake.
hmm So I was very close with grandma. My grandma used to spend all my summers with her. She lived outside of Ottawa. If you know Arnprior, Ontario, that's where she's from.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
I would be remiss, and I know you've told this 2 or 3 times on the show, but I'm going to ask you to do it again because it's one of my favorite stories I've ever heard in 10 years of programming. And every time you're on, our audience changes. Different people are listening. Maybe for the first time they're hearing you. You have to tell your black-eyed kid story.
Okay. So it was January 2nd, uh, 2022. And if you didn't know, I live about an hour. If you know where Olympia, Washington is, I live by Olympia, Washington. So we had just had a really big snowstorm, and it was all melting. And you know how it is, right? In the Pacific Northwest, when the snow starts to melt, everything gets sloppy and muddy. So it's about 4:30, 4:30. It's dusk. The sun's going to go down in like 10 minutes. And I'm sitting at my computer desk, watching YouTube videos brainlessly when I hear the gate bell go off. And so at the front of my house, probably 100 feet away from our front door, we have the gate with a bell. If you need something, you ring the bell, right? So I heard it, and I wasn't expecting any packages from Amazon or anything like that. So I look at my security cameras. It's right next to my desk, and I don't see anything. So I'm like, okay, great. What's happening is ice is melting. It's getting into the buzzer. I better go clean it up because it's going to freeze tonight. It's going to wreck the bell, and it's such a pain in the patoot to change this thing out. So I need to let the kids out anyway. So open the door. All the kids are running out. Or fur kid, my dogs. I call them my kids, right? Well, the other fur parents probably do the same thing. So all the pups are running around and playing, and I walk over to my fence, and it's a 6-foot high fence. It's red cedar, and it's got like gaps, probably like a 1/4 inch in between the slots or slats, I think is the term for it. And so I go to the front gate. I'm about to open it. I notice there's a kid standing there, and from what I could tell, he was probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 years old. I'm a short guy. I'm only 5'5", and he was a good foot shorter than me, so I'm guessing at this. And I'm like, "Hi, do you need some help?" And the kid, it's a boy. He's wearing a gray hoodie and blue jeans, and I think it was sneakers, but I'm not quite sure. And he just said, "Let me in. I need to use your phone." And I'm like, "It's okay, kid. It's like, I've got my phone here. Just tell me what's your phone number." And I didn't think at the time, right? Because everyone's got their phone numbers programmed in. You don't really remember like 206 area code, for example, anymore. And I'm just like, "Look, I can call your parents, or do you want me to call the police?" And he's just like, "No, let me in. I need to use your phone." and I couldn't get a good look at his face. Like his hoodie was down over his eyes. I could just see like the bottom, probably half of his face, and he looked Latino or maybe Native American. And um, I'm like, look, I'm just gonna call the I'm just gonna call 911 and the police can take you home. And then Mikey, who's my big black and white pit bull, he's got a head like that, like big old alligator head. And he comes up and he starts barking at the kid. So I turn to shush him. And when I look back, the kid's gone. So when I open the gate where I live, it's just a big empty field across from me. And the road I'm on, there's only like 3 houses, and the road I'm on is, I don't know, not quite half a mile long. I would see the kid. It's just open and there's snow. There's no place to hide. And I look down and I don't see any like footprints in the snow or anything like that. So I'm like, this is really weird. And I close the gate and I go back to my security cameras and I rewind it because it just happened. And this all took all of 3 minutes. So I rewind it and play the video back, and you can see me approach the gate and see me pull out my phone. You can see Mikey come over and bark, but you don't see a kid on camera. So of course I call Merl. Right after that, I'm like, dude, like this just happened. What is this? And he's like, I think you just saw a black-eyed kid. I'm like, like I didn't. How do you know that? I didn't see his eyes. He had his hood down. I couldn't see his eyes. And that's the story. That's about it. Never happened again. And that's what happened.
Still my favorite story of yours, my friend. Favorite. It scares me every time. And I often get people who will ask, about black-eyed kids, and that is the best story that I can share with them is the story of you. And totally creepy.
Yeah, I mean the kid's voice, it sounded like perfectly normal, like a little, a 10 or 12-year-old boy's voice would. I always thought it'd be like, "You let me in," but it wasn't.
It's just weird how when you check the videotape and there's no sign of this young lad, and yet you're staring at him and having a conversation with him.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, not much of a conversation, but I mean, I was just, like, worried the kid, like, it's, like, 32 out. I'm like, "Kid, you're gonna freeze," right? I'm thinking about the kid needing help more than anything, but I guess that's the thing of how they lure do we wanna say victims? But lure their prey? How's that? I don't know.
You ever thought what would have happened if you let him in?
I just went on the internet after I talked to Merle and stuff, and I read the stories about how there's, like, memory loss or you feel really hungover for a few days, but, I'm glad that didn't happen. Thank you, Mikey. I have this thing where my dogs always save me from from ghosts and monsters, all through my life, but, I'm glad it didn't happen. But it's still a unique experience, I have to say. Probably one of the 4 encounters with ghosts I've ever had, and, like, 2 of them are Grandma Jones, 1 might be Grandpa Jones, and then I've got black-eyed kids.
That's very cool. Very cool. All right. What kind of location do you want to go to next, or what are you working on now?
Okay, so, the current documentary, and it'll probably be out at the end of February. I gave it away during the break. We went to Port Townsend, and I went to the Palace Hotel, which you hear about Manresa Castle and you hear about Fort Borden. Palace Hotel is one of the other big haunts. It was a true brothel. It has a long history. Everyone knows it was a brothel. And I have to say, this is the first time in a very long time where the ghost didn't really want to talk to us. So what I've learned there, and this is part of the thing where I said scale back the gadgets and be more of a real person, is because when we put the technology away and we relaxed a bit more. Uh, the ghosts were far more willing to talk to us. Um, and this is the first time where I'm like, it was kind of mandatory to turn the lights off. You don't always have to turn off the lights when you do a ghost hunt. And in this case, though, I think the ghosts were a little bit nervous with the cameras out and everything. So when we put a lot of it away, that's when we got our ghostly engagement. And I have to say, I felt more comfortable and with filming and doing the investigation and that kind of style. I did a lot of filming on my phone for the first time for this one. The phone I got right here.
What's it like filming in a brothel?
I mean, so the thing about the Palace Hotel is they don't hide the fact that it was a brothel, and a lot of the rooms that you can rent are named after the prostitutes that work there.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so the big suite is room 3. It is Marie's suite. She was the madam. She's a Portuguese immigrant, and we don't really know what happened to her. Like in U.S. history, I don't know if this is the same in Canada, but a lot of the brothels ran up till about World War II started, and then they all got shut down. And she kind of disappears from the record at that time. But next to that is Merle stayed in Claire's room. She was one of the most notorious prostitutes in town. But and they keep the rooms in like this Victorian era style. So Marie's is this crushed red velvet room, for example, and Merle's is more floral and blue. But when you go around to all the rooms, like they preserved it from what the ladies would have been like the ladies' working rooms at the time. So it's kind of cool where they don't. It's not hushed up. Everyone's pretty open about what it was. Um, and you're more comfortable, I guess, asking those more grown-up questions of the ghosts.
That is excellent. Excellent. Have you ever thought about maybe doing like abandoned military bases? I know you have a few down there.
Yeah,
They
so go ahead.
they never get done. They never get investigated.
Yeah, so we did do Fort Worden, and Fort Worden was a army base. This is when they had the big old cannons on the sea cliffs that they would fire into the ocean. I forgot the name of the base in Victoria, but it's right across. Fort Worden is directly across from Victoria. I forgot what the corresponding base was outside of Victoria. And we did that one, and we got loads of activity. I think it helps because I'm ex-military, and I could talk to the ghosts, more as a soldier would. And I did a lot of research into what was happening with the base and the figures. So I could tell you about Captain Frank Thornton, who made national headlines. He committed suicide in one of the buildings, the bricks. And we had a very interesting conversation with some spirit there about his death and what life was like for a soldier in about 1910. For one thing, it's kind of hard to get on the bases. A lot of them, get preserved, and let's just say the security doesn't like you running around with the cameras and stuff and filming in every room. But it's just not that common, at least stateside, to go into abandoned military base. A lot of them have been turned into museums. And you don't necessarily get to like rent a room. In the case of Fort Worden, you can rent the barracks if you want. You can rent all of the houses and stay in them, and that's what we did. But it's just not common in other places, so I can see why you don't hear about it as much. We have a few on the West Coast, but I think there's only a handful altogether.
What's the ultimate location for you? What's the ultimate haunting?
Oh, geez, the ultimate place. Um, I this is a little morbid, right? But it's ghost hunting's kind of a morbid subject. I would want to do something like Eastern State or Pennhurst, an asylum. We have a few here in Washington State, They're either in ruins, totally in ruins, so it's kind of hard to set up a ghost hunt, right, with not much of a building foundation left. We do have Western State, though. And Western State is actually is Fort Steilacoom. So it's an old abandoned military base, essentially, but it was converted into a mental health center, and they have this great cemetery. It's not as haunted as you think. For one thing, Western State fesses up to the horrible things that happen there. They fess up to the lobotomies. They fessed up to the shock therapy. They have honored the people that died there. Like if you go to the cemetery, they have the plaques. They redid the graves. So you don't really get as much ghostly activity there versus some of the other places. The other one in Washington we have is Northern State, but it's pretty much ruins. And I wouldn't say you could conduct a very good ghost hunt there. But I would like to check out, for me, it would be Danvers State is the name of it. It's in Massachusetts. It's actually been converted into apartment rentals apartments now. They kept the main building, tore down the rest of it, and completely gutted that building to turn it into modern apartments. So in that regard, I mean, the history's been lost. And I wish we could have done something to help preserve it. But believe me, it was in bad shape. So I'm happy they kept the main building, which is that Kirkbride example of a asylum, the big Gothic building. I think it's called the Kirkbride plan.
We've seen that happen so much here in British Columbia, and I know it's happening everywhere, where locations are being torn up for condominiums or townhouses. And like I think in New Westminster, the Ocala jail, which would be, incredibly haunted because that was one of the last places that they unalived prisoners in Canada. One of the last places. And before capital punishment was deemed illegal here.
Oh, yeah.
And so, plus different asylums, different hospitals, they've all been torn down because the Lower Mainland area is just so jam-packed and property is so expensive there that they have no choice but to tear down these, memorial type areas. And, we're seeing that all along the West Coast, because people want to be close to the water. They want to be close to any type of view. They don't care what's there anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they don't think about the history or the past of it. For one thing, if I put my urban planner hat on, I'm like, this asylum, this mental health facility, there's a lot of tragedy involved. I'd just like to erase it from our collective memory. So I could see that, because people don't want to think about, electroshock therapy happening in their basement, right?
But the thing is, like even in Coquitlam, where they have developed the old Piggy's Palace, Picton Pig Farm, that area has been developed. I would never want to have a house there.
Yeah.
You imagine the ghosts that are running through there of all those women that were tragically murdered by that psychopath?
Oh, I remember this guy. I remember this.
And that property has all been developed. They didn't put up a memorial, a park, nothing.
Oh, wow.
They just developed the area. Now, the Pictons developed much of that property prior to the bust, and they figure that under all the housing and the acreage that they sold off to real estate, that there's probably chipped up bodies in there that they will never find. But the rest of it, I can't believe they did that.
That's sad. I mean, I would put definitely a plaque up, at least to remember the victims.
Tell that to the people who bought in that area.
Yeah.
Jake, really great having you back on Spaced Out Radio. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a good night, everyone.
Coming up next, Swamp Dweller and Q&A with the Crypted reporter Robin Haynes next.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy.
All
Thank
right,
you
man.
very much.
Thank you for having me. Have a lovely night. And for folks still listening, thanks for listening to me ramble.
Take care, my friend.
All
We'll
right,
talk
take
soon.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Jacob Rice, everybody, one of the good guys in the paranormal. I'll be right back. Bring Robin in here momentarily. All right. Jennifer Beveridge, how you doing? Good to see you. Got a minute to go here. Thank you to Major League ×2, Search and Destroy, and Richard for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support. Thurston Howell III, appreciate you coming on in. All right. Ashley, are you in the Lower Mainland? Is that where you are? "30 seconds to go." Oh, I feel like crap. Yeah, I'm going to be finished early tonight, Rob, because I am not feeling good. So as soon as I wrap up the show with Robin, I'm going to be checking on out because I am not feeling good whatsoever. Here we go. Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate bringing your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Halophilus. Halophilus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp.
My name is Sam. I grew up in northeast Georgia, next to Lake Hartwell. This happened around the late fall of my senior year in high school. There was a big patch of woods behind my house, and back in the corner the woods led to a big open field. I put up a deer stand in the corner of the woods so I could be hidden by the trees and still see into the field. The first time I saw it, I got home from school and went straight to the stand. It was about a couple of hours later that I looked across the field, and about 175 yards away, a deer was walking through the field. I took a look down the scope of my rifle to get a closer look. This deer was not right. It was sickly looking, and its limbs were too long for its body. It looked like it was sniffing around when all of a sudden it jerked its head up toward my stand, and it seemed to look straight at me. It then let out a blood-curdling scream. I bolted down my stand and back to my house. I was very, very freaked out, but I was never one to believe in the supernatural and paranormal, so I shrugged it off and thought maybe it was just one screwed up deer. Fast forward to a couple of nights later. My dad had to go spend the night with my grandma because she was sick at the time, so it was just me at the house. Now in the living room of my old house, there was a sliding glass door that looked into the backyard. You could see the tree line of the wood from the door, and some of it was illuminated by a lamppost we had in the backyard. I was chilling in the living room when I glanced outside through the door, and in the tree line, I could see the same deer from the day before. I was very amused, so I went outside to get a look. It noticed me, and it looked at me. I called out to it. "You okay, fella?" What it did next still haunts me to this day. In the driest, most monotone voice it spoke. "Help me, Sam." I about crapped myself from terror when I ran back inside and grabbed my rifle and locked myself in my bathroom. I'd never been so scared in my life. I could hear it let out another scream just like the first time. I was crying at this point, just wanting it to go away. After a few minutes, the screaming stopped. I didn't come out of the bathroom till the next morning. I never went back into the woods behind my house, and I abandoned the deer stand. I couldn't chance ever seeing this thing again. I've only told a few people about this, but they all seem to think it was either really tired or tripping balls at the time. I know what I saw, and I know it wasn't a hallucination. I still go hunting and fishing outdoors a lot, but I never run into anything like that. For the longest time, I didn't know what it could have been. But after hearing stories on your channel, I think I might have found what it was. I think it's a skinwalker or a wendigo. I find this weird because I didn't think those things would be in northeast Georgia of all places.
Thank you to Swamp Dweller for another spooky story. If you want more just like that, you could head on over to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, and literally hit subscribe, ring that bell. You got thousands of stories just like that for free for you to listen to. Time for Robin. Robin Haynes, it's always good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio Weekly. Thank you for coming on in once again.
Well, thank you. I love being here. Sorry to see you're feeling under the weather.
Yeah, I ate some. I did the stupid thing, and what I did was I ordered pizza last night, and then I heated up the leftovers and ate them today, or for dinner, and I just feel disgusting right now. Just absolutely disgusting.
You sound like you got a bad head cold.
I do have a case of the sniffles too. So between
Yeah.
both of them, I'm not doing very well.
Do you know what? Sasquatch have, there's things that they do for that. One of them is ground ginger. Like, get a hold of me and I'll give you the little recipe thing they do. And then also, if you start the coffee and it's the ground turnip, you take a teaspoon and a warm coffee cup of water, and that's what they use.
Actually sounds pretty good.
But actually, the ground ginger is really helpful. And I mean, ivermectin, also, if you have a cold, ivermectin horsewormer. I know I say it all the time, but it is a parasitic, and a cold comes from a parasite. So that'll knock it out too. Also gets rid of the stomach flu.
Well, I think a good night's sleep will help calm my stomach. And,
Yeah.
I look forward to that.
Well, praying for you, big guy. You got to get better.
I guarantee you I'll be fine. Guarantee you. So it'll be very, very good. Very good.
Yeah. It's going around. I had it for like 4 weeks. It wouldn't go away, but it wasn't COVID. It was like a cold and flu bug that just didn't want to leave.
So last night we had Christian McLeod on the show.
He said he was coming on. I told him, you should have gone the same night I'm on.
I know. I didn't even think of scheduling that way.
I know. I just talked to him and Christina the other day. They're excited about coming to Nebraska, so that's a good thing.
Very much so. Very much so. I'm very excited to meet up with my friends there and to meet up with you and everything that goes with that.
Sorry to interrupt. We have a new person on our roster that's going to join us. Tim Kuhnbo Baker. So we are extremely excited and honored to have him. He's phenomenal. and nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Like the first time I talked to him, we talked on the phone for 2.5 hours. He's like tremendous.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Very nice.
so we're excited.
I noticed on the website you might have room for one more. Are you looking for one more person
I
to join?
do. I have one more. I have a couple people in mind, but I haven't got anything set in stone yet. But we have one spot left for Friday.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, like I said, I haven't got anybody nailed down yet, kind of percolating it. So, any suggestions are always welcome.
Well, I think it would be absolutely great. And if you all of a sudden need somebody, you're scrambling and you need somebody, I've got lots of people, in my arsenal that could definitely get.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me some ideas. Shoot them over to me.
I can do that.
Like I said, I've got people I can call in, but I'm trying to figure out just the right fit for what we're trying to do. So I'm open to suggestions. So send some names over to me.
I can definitely do that. I will do that, away from this show. But let's talk about what you do for a living here. You communicate with cryptid beings. It doesn't matter whether you mainly focus on Sasquatch, but I want to talk about some of the other little beings that are out there. Have you ever had encounters with gnomes or little people?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Little people are a big thing. Okay. They're in fact, one of my clients the other night, we were talking and she had him at her house. Several people that I work with have had them in their house. I've dealt with them. They've been in my house. I've seen them out in the woods. I've talked with them and they're crazy. They're good. Don't get me wrong. Most of them are good. The thing is, like your little people, elementals are supposed to be neutral. It's always easier if you know if they're either good or bad. Okay. So even if they're labeled good or bad, there's good and bad in everything. So it doesn't mean that every one of them would be bad. But the thing is when you have certain beings that are technically supposed to be neutral, they seem to be good or bad in a major way. It's like they tend to go overboard. And the little people are pranksters. They are hysterically funny, but they can get into a lot of trouble. They really can. In fact, they love to trip you. They like to play with your shoelaces. They have a thing about rocks. They're really into the rocks. And it's like a lot of people don't realize it, but a lot of people have them in their homes. Like you'll see something relatively low to the ground just dashing across the room. Those are little people. And they want to play. They're pranksters. They get into absolutely everything.
Are they interdimensional?
Yeah. Yeah, they can go pretty much wherever they want to go. And they do. You'll see, everybody sees all the armadillo holes and stuff in the ground. They will also use the armadillo holes. They will also put holes in the ground and tunnel and go wherever they want to go. And then you get your fairies. The thing about fairies, they're not like it is in the storybooks. Fairies pack a lot of power, just like the fae. Okay, they are very powerful little beings. Don't let the size fool you. They have no tolerance. Most of the time you don't have problems with them, but know that they pack a punch. They don't look like they do in the storybooks. They aren't all that pretty. They tend to like the dragonflies. I've actually physically seen them on the back of the dragonflies before. And they tend to, hang around those. They like the flowers. They like the gardens. They like the woods. They like nature. But they can pack a punch, and there's good and bad in all of them. But they are not something that you mess with lightly. Because they got a lot of power to them. The fae especially, you've got to really be careful with fae. Not saying that fae are bad or that they're going to come after you, but you don't want to get on the wrong side of them. They are extremely powerful and they can do a lot of damage should they want to. Now, I interacted with them so far twice, and they were very kind both times. The first time it was a very, very moving experience and they were very kind. But I've also known people that have had the exact opposite with them. I will say this, you can feel the frequency off them when you're around them, and they are powerful.
Why are they known as such tricksters?
I don't know. I think it's just their personalities. They're little. It's like the gnomes. Gnomes, I've only ran into a couple of those. In fact, I have a picture of, I thought it was a puckwudgie, but it might have been a gnome because of the way it looked, but I thought it was a puckwudgie in my backyard. I've been around gnomes in Michigan. They were, I don't want to say they were bad. They just wanted to be left alone. Leave them alone, let them do thing, and they're happy and they don't bother anybody. Your elementals seem to be a little bit more, they don't seem to bother too much. But yeah, you got to be careful of these things. Like, don't let the size fool you. Okay? People think because of the size that dictates it. It absolutely does not. They've all got a ton of woo to them, and they are not afraid to use it.
Are they magical? Do they have magical powers?
Yeah, the woo powers, which they use the frequency, the higher frequencies. They are higher frequency being. That's how they tap into it. They've got to be high frequency, high energy, which puts them in at least a minimum of the fifth dimension. These things are much higher than that, and that's how they tap into them. But yeah, they absolutely do. There's been a little person that I've seen on and off for years, and he has got a fetish for rocks. He's always got certain stones he's looking for, and if you can't find the stone, the world is going to end. A lot of people put the sage and tobacco out for them, just like you would any other cryptid. These are not cryptids. These are actual little beings. And, sometimes they take it, but again, they don't always do it. It's the act of the gift that they appreciate.
Are little people everywhere, or are they just in areas that tend to have a lot of First Nations people around?
In my personal opinion, they are everywhere. I have seen more little people that were not anywhere near First Nations. Like where I live at, there's no First Nation tribe around here. We've got them all over the place. I have a friend that has them around her. And the client of mine that interacts with the little people, she's not anywhere near First Nations. I think a lot of that stuff tends to go more towards First Nations because, they've always interacted with them. I think First Nation people are more spiritual. And I think at times they're more in touch with this type of thing. And so, yeah, they would hang around them, and they're a higher frequency and higher vibration, but they're everywhere. I've never not had little people show up at some point. The thing you have to realize is when you are into the cryptids, doesn't matter what cryptid it is. Once you get into that world of high frequency beings, whether it's Bigfoot, dogmen, cat people, goat man, ETs, or little people, gnomes, fairies, they are all high frequency beings, and they're all drawn to each other. So when you get one, be prepared for the rest, because eventually you're going to go full circle and you're going to get everybody.
What would upset little people?
I think if you're out in their area and you're destroying the woods, you're destroying their homes. They seem to be the ones I've encountered. They are little with big attitudes. And I don't mean that in a bad or unkind way. But it's like if you look at a Chihuahua dog, they always act like they're the size of a St. Bernard. So you got little packages, big personalities, big attitudes. They don't like their stuff messed with. They don't like things moved around. They like their things the way they want them. They do not like being disrespected in the woods. They don't like the woods disrespected. They like to be left alone, do what they want to do. If they want interaction, it's one of those, they'll get in touch with you. They'll let you know. They just like to do their own thing.
Do you think then that these beings, what entities, little people, whatever we want to call them, Do you think that they are from an inner Earth or a different plane?
Do you know, and this is just an opinion as I have no way to back it up. I don't think they're from inner Earth. I think they're from this Earth. They've lived there. I think they go to multiple planes. Absolutely. Absolutely, they go to different planes. But they're also very comfortable just living here where we're at. Not because of us by any means, but because of the woods, nature, the area. But they do travel to different planes. And, all these things go between dimensions. I think your little people stay here more than some of the other ones, but they still can do it.
Do they do that because that's where they're from, or do they have the ability to go in and out of like doorways that are like portals that are opening?
Yeah, again, this is only my observation. I don't have any facts on it. This is what I've witnessed. The ones that I've seen travel between the dimensions. They have little portals they go through. I've seen them be in one place 1 minute and another, talk to somebody, and the same one I just saw ended up somewhere else. So do I think that they go through the dimensions? I absolutely do. I think all of these things can. I think that they spend a lot of time on our planet and on our plane, but they absolutely move very freely through other planes and portals.
Where's the entryways to these?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you exactly where an entryway per se would be. There's portals, just like our cryptids use portals. You have portals that are anchors that are already tied down and aren't mobile. You have some that they create wherever they're at, and are mobile, I guess, for lack of a better word. You're talking portals are like an expressway for us. These little people and other little beings, they can create a portal where they need it. It's all energy based. It's all frequency based. They get that frequency and energy high enough and they can create their own portal wherever they want. Once they do, then they have the option, do they anchor it there so it can't be moved? Or is it one that they're going to, use it and then be done with it? But you can find them anywhere. I've got one that's out under a tree in my backyard, and I know it is, not only because you can feel the energy off of it, but I've had my cat goes in and out of it all the time, and you watch the cat go in and it disappears. Surprisingly enough, it is literally 6 feet from a hole in the ground that we have very good reason to believe the little people are using.
Who then, if it's not the little people, maybe it is, but who then are the beings that are calling people, trying to lure them into the forests?
There's all kinds of different stuff out there. I would not, in my opinion, it would not be just one. Any of these things can call them. I don't think it's little people that are doing that. I really don't. It could be a number of things. Anything from an ET to a cryptid. They can imitate any voice that there is. I've had Sasquatch out on my property before that people swear it's me talking out there. And it never was. So you're talking about any of these things can have a voice and make it whatever they want it to sound like. They're so good at imitating voices. It could be anything. Could it be a fairy? Of course it could. There's so much out in the woods that we fail to see, especially when we're in that lower frequency. In order to be able to see in a paranormal spectrum, you have to have a high frequency. Once your frequency is high enough, it changes your vision. And that's why some people will look at a picture and say it's all pareidolia. And it's very possible that it is in that one, but a lot of times there are things there. And certain people can see it, certain people can't. It's not because anybody's lying. It's because if your frequency is not high enough, you cannot see things through the paranormal spectrum. And once you can see it, you'd be amazed at what you can find out there. There are cryptids that are out there that actually have no name. The Sasquatch call them the Micaiah, which means they that walk the earth that has no name. And they're just different cryptids nobody knows.
Hold that thought, Robin. We got Robin Hayes till the top of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back, everybody.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear. So much fun when you're on.
Oh, I love being on here. Yeah, some of those little buggers, I mean, they can be tough. It really, it's really amazing. Like they can be nice as pie, and then you get one with the bug up its butt, and it's like hell's fury.
Yeah. You guys
And
in the chat room, want to remind all of you that now is a good time to start posting questions for Robin for the next half hour. That would be great if you could.
I tell you, the little people they love to steal things. And, you know, the gnomes will too, but not as much as the little people. They like to go through things, they like to get into trouble. And it's just their personality. I don't think they think they're being bad. I think they're just having, it popped me off. I think they're just having a good time.
I would agree.
They seem pretty playful most of the time.
I'm sorry I'm not very talkative. I just feel
No, I feel bad that you're sick. Don't you even worry about it.
oh.
You need to be resting.
Oh, I will be here very soon. I will be soon.
Bless your heart. I feel so bad for you. Hopefully the rest of the family doesn't get it.
Oh no, they're good. It's that pizza that's making me feel ill. So oh, you good. I'm starting to get the tired itchies, you know?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, we've got one spot left. Like I said, I've got a few people in mind. I have lots of people I can contact. Just looking for that right fit that's going to work well for this year. You know, every year is different. So yeah, definitely shoot me over some names. We'll see what we can do. But I'm thrilled about Tim Baker. Actually,
Yeah.
Kristen knew him and called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about this person?" I didn't have any openings at that time. We opened 2 slots, one on Friday and one on Saturday, so that I just felt like it was more well-rounded. I just felt like with what we had was a little short. And so I put another spot on Friday and another spot on Saturday. So we put
Cool.
Tim Baker on Saturday, and I've got one spot left on Friday.
Cool.
Yeah, we're going to have fun.
My number one selection would be Jackie Harmon. She's on our Spaced Out radio team.
Okay, now what does she do? I don't know her. I'm sorry.
She's been a cryptid. She's been going cryptid hunting since she was 4 years old.
Really?
She had an encounter last year on Mount Adams where she actually got groped by a Sasquatch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she was sleeping in a tent and literally had they could hear them all around. And then they heard the one guy come into camp and he started grabbing her, started at her ankles, went up to her calves, her knees, her legs, her butt, her back, her shoulder, and she freaked out once it got to her head.
Oh, wow. I can remember being in Nebraska, and I was visiting someone that's very active in the research field, and we camped out, and the whole night one had its hand on the tent and was cupping my head and rubbing and massaging my head all night long. And, they can put you in that trance so you can't move. And I remember just laying there going, I probably should react to this, but I'm fine. Got up the next morning, there was all these footprints right outside the tent on the ground where my head was at. But it played with my head all night long through the tent.
Yeah. Jackie's part of our show here.
Oh,
and
excellent.
I think she would be, and she's a fantastic person. So I think I would highly recommend her.
Yeah, send her information over.
I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, you'd love her.
Yeah. Yeah, we want people, that we don't want anybody to walk away, because when you do a conference, you have a responsibility. You're trying to educate people about them as well as entertain them.
We're going to come back here momentarily. Give me 2 seconds here. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott, and we love bringing the Crypted Report to you with Robin Haynes. Before we bring Robin back on, I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Robin Haynes, the Cryptid Report, also one of the people who puts together the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, the final weekend of April in Grand Island, Nebraska. Hopefully there's no tornadoes this year.
Pardon?
I said, hopefully there's no tornadoes this year.
You know what? It would be nice. I've yet to find a year that I haven't encountered a tornado there, but we're hopeful. We are always hopeful. We never give up hope.
I love it. I love it. Beautiful area there, though.
It is.
So flat.
Oh, that's the only thing. I need hills.
So let's get to some audience questions here as they are starting to pile up here. Let's start off with CS here, who is asking, well, when we were talking about the little people, what is their sense of humor like?
For a little person, they are very comical. They have a very warped sense of humor, much like the Sasquatch too. Only theirs is a lot more active. They tend to not be, when they're serious, it's because they're mad they can't find anything. They lose a lot of stuff. They're always searching around for something, but they have a very intense sense of humor. Like they're pranksters. They love to pull pranks. That's a big deal. Grab your shoelace, make you trip. That kind of thing. Wrestle around. They're always wrestling around. One of the people that I work with, they get 2 or 3 of them that come in their house all the time. And then they're up all night long because they're wrestling around, running up and down the hallway. They can be really intense and then flip in a blink of an eye, and they're just goofy.
No kidding. How goofy are we talking here?
Goofy. They get into everything. They really, nothing is off limits. It's not that they have a bad temper, but when they get fixated on what they're going to do, they have a short fuse on things. They can be as sweet as can be, and then just flip that switch in a heartbeat.
No kidding.
They're just, the 3 that I was referring to, the 2 of them wrestle all the time, and the other one's a little bit calmer. But they like to go through things. They like to go through your belongings. If they come in the house, if you're outside with them, you're fine. But their things are their things. It's like dealing with a toddler.
That's very interesting.
Those are just the ones that I've encountered. I'm sure other people have different opinions and different experiences, but those are the ones that I've encountered. For the most part, I think they're pretty decent. The ones I've encountered, there's been several that I felt were very kind. I don't think they're destructive at all. They just like to get into things and check things out, but I haven't noticed them to be destructive at all. Curious, they are.
Right. No, that makes total sense. That makes total sense in regards to that. I'm just baffled that they have a sense of humor. Well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. That is wrong. I don't understand their sense of humor because their sense of humor is practical jokes which we could take very seriously, like losing our car keys,
Oh, yeah.
or your wedding ring disappearing, or
Mhm.
something very momentous to you.
Oh, yeah. To them, it's a trinket, and they're fascinated by it. They think it's great. They're always looking for something, and when they find it, it's now theirs, and they want to keep it, and they want to hang on to it. But they're not mean, that any of the ones I've encountered. I haven't noticed them being aggressive. They can get huffy if they can't find stuff, but I mean, I haven't noticed them where they're problematic, other than they do like to get into things. They can move very, very quickly, whether it's through dimensions or, somewhere on our plane.
That's so interesting. So interesting to even think about. Let's go to another question here. Let's go over to Frost Kitten. Robin, are fairies more common on certain continents or parts of the world? And if so, where?
That, I'm going to be honest with you and tell you, I can't give you 100% certainty on that. I would think that maybe, I've always heard that, you get out in like Ireland and those kind of things, and they're supposed to be more prevalent. I haven't noticed that. I've seen them everywhere I've ever been through I haven't covered the entire world by a long shot, but I don't think so. I think they're just, if there's nature out there, they're there. I don't think that comes down to, and this again, my opinion, I don't believe that it comes down to a certain continent. I really don't. All of these, the cryptids and the paranormal beings, they are literally everywhere. I think that we'd like to make sense of it in our own mind, maybe put them in certain boxes where they're going to be more prevalent here, here, and here. I personally don't believe that. I just don't. They are all high frequency beings, and they all pale together. And as we already know, the cryptids are everywhere, and everything just kind of follows.
Okay. Do you think then that there are certain areas of the planet that are more mystique?
Yeah,
regard-
I think there's areas that they may find more enjoyable for them, but I just don't think it's certain sections of the globe that make it better. I think it's just like, is it an area that's conducive for their life? Is it wooded? Is there water? Is there food? I mean, is it peaceful? It's like when I moved here, the last thing I thought I was going to find the night I moved here was little people. Yet I did. I've got an acre and a half here. There's people on either side of me, but there's a lot of woods. I'm in the middle of the forest. And, so the properties are divided fairly well. They're all over around here. And I've yet to find people that I've worked with personally with the cryptids that these things didn't show up. So I really don't think it's a location thing. Is the scenery and the area conducive for their lifestyle more than it is, oh, okay, well, maybe they're, more prevalent in Ireland, or maybe in the UK, or what. I just don't think that's it. I've had too many people that I've worked with that have had them show up there. Personally, I think it has to do with those high frequency beings all paling around together. Even if they're not interacting with each other, they create their own little high frequency world there, and that's what they thrive in. So if you're in an area where you have the cryptids, and you might have fairies, or or little people, or gnomes, or dimensionals and elementals, it's all high frequency, and that's where they're comfortable. And they tap into it.
Sounds good. I like that. Let's go to Lenda, who is asking, What are mermaids?
Good question. We would love to get a sample of a mermaid for the DNA study. You know, I'm not really sure how to answer that. I've talked to what I believe was one mermaid, and that was years ago. And that was because there was a Sasquatch that had an issue, and I was helping it, and I had to get hold of a mermaid to do it. It was done through mind speak. So can I prove it was a mermaid? No. But I will say this, when I talked to it, all I could taste was fish. And I'm not a fish person. I'm telling you right now, I don't do fish. And it was awful because I just kept smelling fish and burping fish, and I couldn't get rid of it. You know, in my opinion, we don't have any DNA. The government, I'm sure, does, but we don't. And it would be more along the human hybrid limit, or not limits, but hybrid line. I don't believe that they look like what we have pictured in the books. There has been several different places that have gone out and researched them, and they don't look like that. They're not these beautiful creatures with the long flowing hair, and that's all done for TV drama. For the people that have actually gone out and researched them, what few, and there's very few photos they have of them, they don't look like that. You know, they are looking more human from the upper half, yes, but their hands appear to be a little bit more webbed. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know. That's just the research that I've done on them, and different things where I've seen people that have researched them and tried to bring forth information. I think there's so much about them that we don't know about, but I think just based on their looks and things, I think it would be a very big possibility that they would, at some point in their DNA, that, you know, human would come up. But again, we don't have any DNA to test it.
Wow. You know, Vancouver, where I grew up, just outside, there was, you know, allegedly around Stanley Park back in the day, you know, going back decades, alleged mermaid sightings around there and all through the islands that connect, you know, British Columbia to Washington State.
Yeah,
There's
I think,
lots
go
of
ahead.
them. Go ahead.
No, I just think we would be very remiss and closed-minded into thinking that they don't exist. I think there is a lot of evidence that shows that they did. I mean, even going way, 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 way back, and, you know, you'd have these people on all these ships, and they would talk about how they could see them. Back in that time period, there would have been no way for anybody to start coming up with mermaids. They didn't have the books we have now. They didn't have access to the information we had now. You're talking back, you know, 1600s, and you've got all these ships that are seeing them. When you get that many people seeing them, it's time to take notice of it and say there's got to be something there. And I think that we have had enough information come forward about them to accept the fact that we may not know everything about them, but they're there. You know, now whatever it was I talked to that day, when you mind speak, you put your intent on what and who you want to talk to. It's done through the collective consciousness. Through the collective consciousness, time and space does not exist. So you make that conscious connection as a collective to talk to who and what it is. One of the ways for me that it works is I always show me images of what I'm talking to. Okay. Can I guarantee that was a mermaid? I can't. I'm not going to lie and say that I can. I mean, my life is wacky enough. I don't lie about it because it's already crazy enough. But yet when my intent was on a mermaid, that's what I got. And that fishy thing was awful. And the only reason I connected to it was because the Sasquatch needed me to. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought to. Never have I again. You know, I've never seen one. But what I have seen research-wise on them, I think it would be just something that you would automatically assume that there's going to be some type of human DNA in that mitochondrial side.
I love it. Let's get to another question. Let's go to Paramarv. Does your cat have a tracker? If so, does it show you where the cat goes when it goes into that portal?
Do you know what? That's a really good question. I have never put a tracker on my cat. This particular cat Okay, just so everybody understands. This cat was given to me by the Sasquatch. It was half dead when I got it. It was probably about 4 months old. And the Sasquatch are the ones that gave it to me to take care of because it was almost dead. And so it's been very attracted to the Sasquatch since it was a kitten. If it can sneak out, it's a house cat, but if it can sneak out, it will definitely go outside looking for the Sasquatch. There's a spot under this huge bush that I have on the side of my property, and the bush just flourishes. It grows very well, except the one spot under it. Nothing will grow under it. And it has this one area that if you look at it, it almost like it shimmers. And every time this cat gets outside, every single time, it makes a beeline out my front door, around the house, and goes right to that spot. Every single time it goes under that, and you can see where it goes. It's very open under there. And it goes in through that spot where it looks like it shimmers, and then that cat vanishes. I've had 3 or 4 people watch this happen, so it's not just myself. And it's gone for hours. One time it was gone for 5 days. And the only reason I got it back was because I was having a fit and I asked the Sasquatch to get the cat back. You know, they've brought me dogs before, they brought me cats before. I take my job of watching them very seriously when they get brought to me, and I was having a fit. And it was within a matter of minutes after that, that cat got deposited on my front porch. But every time that darn cat gets loose, that's the first place it goes. Like, you have to chase it down, hope you can get to it before it gets to that spot. And if you can't get to it, it's going in it and you don't know when it's coming back. Now in Michigan, we had a portal in the backyard, and my son's German Shepherd, it would be the same thing. And that one, it didn't have a tracker on it. We actually had a collar on it. So if it jumped the fence, it would shock it, trying to teach it not to jump the fence. And it didn't care. It would go right through that collar, over the fence, go right to that hole. Excuse me. And that dog was in there. And whenever it came back was when it came back. But you would watch it just like it spit it back out. It's all the hair. But
let's go to another question. Let's go to Joanne here. Have you ever heard of a Bigfoot mimicking humans? I thought I was shooing a bear when it took a step forward, raised my hands and yelled at it. It did exactly what I did.
yes, they will do that. I have seen that so many times in my lifetime. They can imitate your body movements. They can imitate your voice. Okay. Years ago, my ex-husband was out hunting in the woods behind our house. He came in completely angry at me and said, why was I out there scaring the deer? And I said, I haven't left the house. The kids told him she hasn't left the house. And he was absolutely insistent it was me. He's like, I've known your voice for 15 years. You are out there talking. And I said, I haven't left the house. And we learned very early on, they can imitate any voice like to perfection. It's not a close match. It is a match. I've watched them do the same hand movements, behavior patterns that I've done or other people have done. My children, tell you how close it does sound to the person they're mimicking. My kids knew if I'm outside or somebody's outside and they call you in the woods, unless you physically see that person, you do not go. You don't go because you've been called out there or you think it's mom and mom's telling you to come. I don't care if you are threatened with death. You do not go. You will not get grounded. You will not get in trouble. But they can imitate that closely where nobody would know. And so my kids from a very young age knew that if you get called out in the woods, whether you think it's mom or dad or whoever, unless you see their person, you do not go.
I love it. I love it. All right. I think we got time for one more here. Let's go to Jay. Do you know if the Sasquatch can completely hear MS, meaning to completely heal multiple sclerosis?
What it is they do frequency healing. Okay. That's how they do their healing. They do it through frequency. And in their world, they have laws just like we do. They are not allowed to interfere with our people. We are not allowed to interfere with theirs. Now, that being said, in certain cases, they will do healing work. They've done it on me before. I would have died a long time ago if it wasn't for them. Can they completely heal MS? I would think that the abilities they have could. Okay. That doesn't mean that they will. And it's not that they don't care, but they have laws that they are governed by as well. But the frequency that they radiate and when they heal, they heal through frequency. Okay. I do healing through frequency, obviously not as good as they do. They're pros. And you have to have two things. Not only does whoever is doing the healing have to have that high frequency, the person receiving the healing has to have a high frequency, so those frequencies blend. If you're talking about somebody that's sick, has a very low frequency healing will not work. So, it's not will they, is can they, based on the frequency of the sick person, and also is it a situation where they can have permission to heal?
We got 30 seconds left, Robin. Quickly tell us where we can find tickets for the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference.
You can go online to Nebraska Bigfoot Conference 2025, and you can buy them right online. You can buy a package deal for the whole weekend plus the movie, or you can get it by day. And you can also buy tickets at the door for any of those that want to do that. We generally have them on sale a little bit cheaper if you buy it before, I think it's end of March, first part of April.
Love it. Thank you very much, Robin. It is also always a pleasure to have you here on Spaced Out Radio each and every time. You are the best. Let me tell you.
Thank you. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you next week.
Absolutely. Robin, I want you to hold on for just a couple of seconds here before you run, as we're going to take this show out momentarily. I look forward to seeing all of you guys tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. Rocking in the background, the little brother is watching. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up, the guitar, God himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat room tonight, YouTube, Twitch, Elgin, Facebook, and on X, I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright. Spaced Out Radio is limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends,
we're watching.
The ultimate night. Mr. Bubblegum. We need a favor. Yes, the blue train has docked for the night. Soon, my friends, we shall ride again. See your tickets never stop. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right. 1 second here. I'm just going to end the show. Give me another 2 minutes here, Robin.
Sure.
Tomorrow night, everybody. Once again, I'm not feeling very good. I'm going to quickly edit and head off to bed here. But thank you for joining us. Thank you tonight to Major Lee, CS, Richard, and Search and Destroy for the super chats. We will chat with you tomorrow night, everybody. Don't forget, head on over to Sweet Robbie G's channel, where he's going to continue the night for us here a little bit early. Good night, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.